Hi, my name is Adam Shoemaker, and I am rector here at St. Stephen's Episcopal Church in Charleston, South Carolina. As we continue the program we are calling Rector's Corner, where I'm interviewing people within our church and beyond about mission and ministry important to St. Stephen's. And today I'm very happy to welcome DeMett Jenkins, who is the Director of Education and Engagement for Faith-Based Communities at the International African American Museum, just a couple blocks from our church. Welcome, DeMett.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on today. I appreciate that.
And just as we get started, DeMett, I'll remind those watching that St. Stephen's gave a pretty large amount of money that we raised, and we had Michael Moore, who used to be the director of the museum, come to visit us at St. Stephen's and receive the check that we had to give him, and also to talk to us about the museum at that time. And I know many of our members have continued their engagement and support of the museum moving forward, so we thought this would be a good opportunity to check in. And the first question that I have for you, DeMett, has really been the first question I've asked many people that I've interviewed in this little program. Is that given where we are, given the reality of the COVID-19 pandemic and the way that has upended so many of the plans that we've all had, I wanted to hear from you how the museum's construction plans have been going and opening plans and what's going on with the IAM.
Yes, so we all have been impacted greatly by COVID-19. But the good news is that, there's always a rainbow within the clouds. And so, we've been coming up with very creative ways how to continue to engage our community and people around the world, how we are sharing about what's happening at the museum. So that has not slowed down at all. And in fact, the building of the museum, that didn't change during COVID. They were still building. They were still doing all of the construction work that needed to happen. And I'm sure they were practicing their social distancing and things of that nature, taking all the precautions, but it did not put a halt to the building. We, in fact, back in August, we were able to do what we call the topping off ceremony. So the last steel beam that was placed on the structure, the frame structure of the museum was placed on the museum. So we were just elated and excited that we could see the actual frame of this museum come into fruition. So we couldn't do a big program, of course, because of COVID. So we just had our staff and the board to be able to participate in that. But a couple of days before, we did extend an invite to the community to come by and sign the beam. So we had a great outpouring of people that came and placed their names, their loved ones' names, friends and family names on that beam. So that beam is now historical because as it sits on the top of the frame of that beam, many names of people who've been here before, people who are currently living now, names are on that beam. So we're just really extremely proud and happy that that was able to continue. And so, of course, like everyone else, we had to pivot and not do in-person programs. So Zoom has been our friend. What we knew of Zoom was kind of very little in the beginning, but we're almost now experts of Zoom. Mm-hmm. So we've been doing a lot of programming and talking and meeting with people virtually so that we can continue to engage everyone and talk about the work that we're doing. We've had lots of programs via Zoom. So we are still striving. We're still out there making connections. We're still receiving donations despite it all, and having people to become chartered members on an individual level and certainly on a corporate and business level. So we're doing pretty good despite it all.
Are the programs that you've been offering on Zoom open to all?
Open to all, yes,
And
open
there,
to
so there are
all.
educational opportunities to,
Yes, so there've been a lot of educational programs. So we've been putting it all out on social media. And for those who are part of our constituents who are either members or have given us their name to continue to share information with them, get that information about our programs. And then we spend a lot of time on our social medias really just highlighting, because part of our mission is to tell the untold stories of African and African American people. So we've been putting a lot of information on our webpage and on social media, just about some of the untold stories, a lot of the history of African and African American people. So we've been doing a lot more of that, and we've been getting a ton of feedback where people are saying, wow, I didn't know that, hadn't heard that before. So we are just really intentional about making sure that we're sharing the history of the ancestors and people in general. Because it's not just people who have died, we're doing current history as well. So any new history or anything that has made history in terms of African people, we're sharing that on our website and our social media as well.
I noticed you lifting up Chadwick Boseman when he died, the actor who was the Black Panther, and I know
who was from South
was
Carolina.
somebody from South Carolina and looked up to by so many people across the country, and seemed to be a champion of the kind of work that the IAM is doing. And also, it must be acknowledged, we've been continuing, unfortunately, to live through very difficult times in the country, and with the police killings that we've had, and the Black Lives Matter movement, and I'm sure all of that has continued to go into your reflections about programming and what to lift up.
Yeah, I mean, we're very sensitive to what's going on in our community and in our world, and we're all thinking about how to just create harmony. How do we come together, get along together, support one another? And so, we hope that the work that we're doing, the programming that we have, and just the museum in itself, that, we want to highlight the good and the worthy and the things that African and African American people have done. And so, we're not trying to be political in any way. That's not our role. But we certainly want to convey a message of love and peace and harmony to everyone.
So has the pandemic changed? I mean, what are your hopes for opening the museum and getting to the day when Charlestonians and many beyond Charleston can start really physically utilizing the museum?
Oh man, we are, this is October of 20. So the hope is for spring of 22. And it looks like we're still on schedule for that. Because like I said, we weren't too impacted by COVID. So the building and construction was continuing on. So we're hopeful for spring of 22, where this building will be erected, and all the exhibitions and galleries and all the stories that we're going to show and tell will be ready for people to view and experience. We always talk about the museum being a two-part experience, an indoor and an outdoor. So when people come to visit our museum, they will be able to experience the exhibitions and galleries within the museum indoor, but there's an outdoor area, an ancestral garden, and where people are able to sit, and they're able to see teardrop planters. There will be a warehouse wall, which is exactly the pathway where the ancestors walked through when they got off the ship and came onto the land. They will have music, and there will be voices of the enslaved as well. So there's an outdoor experience that's just as impactful as the indoor. And one of the highlights that I want to share about our indoor experience is the Center for Family History. And that's where we will be doing genealogical research. So we won't do DNA testing, but we are contracted with several of those organizations that we will be able to offer a discount to those persons who are looking to do DNA testing. But the genealogical research is really who we are. And so we have an extensive digital library right now where people are uploading their obituaries, funeral announcements, marriage license, just historical documents, photographs, anything that helps people to begin their research of their family. And so we're just encouraging people to continue to do that. And if they're not familiar with it, to go to our website, www.iaamuseum.org, and check out the Center for Family History program. And you'll see that it's just awesome, because we're even looking for people who have Bibles of their loved ones. So, you know, people used to write names and important dates inside the Bible. And so we'll scan that for them, and then we'll give them an acid-free box to continue to preserve that Bible, as well as documents and photographs. So that's really one of our highlights of our museum, amongst many.
That's great. And that leads me to my last question about how people can continue to be involved and supportive of the museum. I know you've mentioned donations and the opportunity to be a charter member of the museum. Can individuals or churches provide any data for that? You know, if people have genealogical information at home or pictures or things, can they contribute that to the museum?
Absolutely. If they have a scanner at home, they can scan all of that from their home, from the comfort of their home. If they don't, we're happy to help them scan it and put it in the digital library as well. So if we can support anyone, if they don't have a scanner, don't know how to do it, they could just reach out to us, and we'll make sure that that happens. And that way you don't have to mail us your documents, and we try to mail it back, because some of those things are precious and you don't want to chance losing them. But we're happy to do that for people as well. But we would love for folks to just kind of check out the website and see what the Center for Family History is collecting, and share the information that they do have. In terms of charter memberships, you know, up until the museum opens, our charter membership is the cost is very low. So for an individual person, it's $25. For an organization, a faith community, it starts at $250, and those are annual. But it's you know, for an individual person, $25, which is a meal that we spend. And that's annual, and so you can renew at that same level, or certainly we would love to have as much as people would be willing to give, but you know, it's very minimum. And you're a chartered member, and your name is a part of the museum for the rest of the museum's life. And you can do that in memory of a loved one. You know, I've done it in memory of my mother, and people have done it in memory of just anyone that has been special to them. So we would love for people to be chartered members, and if not, if you're just curious to see who we are and what we're doing, just go to the website, and you can just give us your name, and we'll make sure we add you to our email list, and you can just keep in touch with us there or on social media.
Okay. I know we've talked about this, DeMett, but I still have hopes that maybe Michael Curry, our presiding bishop, can come to town. We're trying to get him to come to St. Stephen's in 2022, because that will be our 200th anniversary year, and we're beginning to think about that. And
well, we need to go back to that.
Lovely to have him. Have him be able to be part of the opening of such a historic museum.
Well, tell me what we need to do on our end to be a part of your conversation, or who we need to talk with, because him coming for your church anniversary and for us would just be ideal, making one trip. You know, so we would love to have him be a part of that and offer a blessing, you know, while he's here.
That's great. And the other wondering I have is, I know you've had Bernard Powers as the interim director since Michael Moore left. Is he just continuing in that role, or is there a search underway for a permanent director?
Yes, there is a search. There is a search committee, and Dr. Bernard Powers is our interim CEO. And then we also have Elijah Hayward, Dr. Elijah Hayward, who is our COO, and they sort of share the role together in specific duties. But there is a search committee, so if there's someone you know or whoever is watching this broadcast, there's someone you know that's interested in the CEO of the International African American Museum, tell them to submit their resume, and the search committee will review it and go from there.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much, DeMett, for making the time to talk about the museum, which is, I think, going to be such a gift, not only to Charleston, but to the whole country. And if there ever is a place outside of Washington, D.C. to have an African-American museum, it certainly is Charleston.
Absolutely.
And in that sacred site, not far from where we sit here at St. Stephen's, and meaningful to us being a church that has its roots in being an African-American Episcopal church. And there's certainly a lot of documents that I think we might be able to contribute ultimately to the museum as well.
Absolutely. Well, we thank you all for your continuous and ongoing support. And we would just love for all of our faith communities across the world to connect with us. A part of my role as the Director of Education and Engagement is to look to those faith communities who would like to do programs with us. And that program could be a symposium, a workshop, some type of event that has to do with spirituality, faith, history, or culture. So if anyone is interested in partnering with us to do some type of program, and we come to you, it doesn't have to be done here in Charleston. We would love for our faith communities to be a partner with us and be involved.
That's great. And one more time, the website of the museum, one more time, is?
It's www.iaamuseum.org.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you very much, DeMett, and thank you all for listening in to this edition of Rector's Corner. I'll be back in a couple of weeks with another interview about mission and ministry important to St. Stephen's. Take care, everybody.
Bye.